This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 274.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? Welcome back to another episode. My name is Ramsey Majaba, and I am your host for today and every day because this is the podcast that I run, which makes sense. And we have a repeat guest today by the name of Brian Geary. Brian interviewed a lot of different SE leaders and sales leaders to understand what are the best practices for onboarding. So I wanted to chat with him and see what are some of these best practices because I complain quite a bit about onboarding, the fact that most companies don't do it right. So I wanted to bring him in. We had this discussion. I was able to contribute to his notes, which always makes someone feel good. So let's just jump into the show, and I will see you after. Mr. Geary, welcome back to the podcast.
Ramsey, always good to see you.
Likewise. Now, my first question is, if you close your eyes right now, would you be able to name all the books that are behind you in the bookshelf?
No, but I can tell you why. They're doing construction by my office. So
Okay.
I'm in my condo, and this is the club room in my condo.
Okay.
And this is a little corner where people who move in and out leave their books.
Oh,
So,
I guess these are not your books, but I was looking at them. I was like, I don't know any of these.
they're all like beach reads and stuff, in Sarasota, Florida here. So,
So you've
this
been
has
on
been my new office for like a week.
Nice. It actually it's a nice background. If people want to see what we're talking about, you should go on YouTube and check it out. But you've been on the podcast a few times, and this time you kind of put a post on LinkedIn, which I commented on, and that brought us together today. And the comment was about the onboarding of new hires in the sales world. So I wanted to dig into that a little bit, but you mentioned mentor, like number one is mentor role, 2, gamify, 3, software demonstration templates as the three best practices. Not all of them, like it's just 3 of many. And I kind of said I hate mentorship. So
Exactly.
Yeah. Why do you think mentorship is a good thing?
Yeah, let's start there. And I will point out, this is 3 of over 100 best practices that I have in a document that I can share with people, however, after this.
Yeah.
But to me, mentorship is very exciting for a new hire because you're getting access to someone who's been there, done that, and they're your buddy, and they can give you the ins and outs, the tribal knowledge. They can share with you what their experience was like going through onboarding and getting up to productivity. And it's different than a sales manager. You can go to your mentor and ask questions that you may not want to ask your sales manager because you feel like you should already know the answer, or how does this really work around here? So the other thing is, for the new hire, the experience, rather than just being with a trainer or your sales manager, now you have another person to be with. It's also great for the mentor because it's a chance to see if management role is for you. So when a mentor takes it to heart, everyone wants to know, do I want to be a manager? And it takes a little pressure off who's ever really leading the training, the sales manager. So those were the pluses, but I really liked your response because you were like, yeah, but. So why don't you tell us the other side of the equation here?
I've been unlucky with mentor. And by the way, I've worked with sales engineering mentors and sales mentors. I always found the sales engineering mentors more willing, but still it sucked. Because they're either assigned, right? They don't know anything about me. The manager just said, congratulations, you're mentoring Ramsey. And they don't know me. They don't know if we're gonna hit it off. They don't know how I think. They don't know if I can be mentored. Also, maybe they don't know if they know how to mentor. No one's given training on how to mentor somebody else. And what mentorship tends to be, come to me if you have any questions. Right? And it's like, yeah, I have a list of 500 right here. Do I come to you after I collect them or one by one? So there's always this odd feeling. And that's one. And the other end is like people become mentors because I put it on the in the post that it's just a checkbox for them to become leaders, right? Some people want to become leaders not for the right reasons. They just want to become leaders for being leaders, right? The raise, whatever. Although a lot of SE leaders get paid sometimes less than their principal SEs or stuff like that. So their motivation is a little bit different. And from a sales perspective, I always found salespeople too busy to mentor anybody. It's like it's an entrepreneurship role where you get fired. It's not like you go broke if you don't hit your quota. You get fired. Um, if you and I didn't find them as great mentors to begin with. So that's my other end of the spectrum.
So I've been thinking about this since our exchange there on LinkedIn, and I have what I believe is a solution.
Okay.
And again, we're talking sales engineers. This is We the Sales Engineers podcast, so we don't need to cover AEs and the challenges. That's a whole nother world.
Scrum. Although I'm one of them now, but Scrum.
I know. I heard that on the podcast that you did the other day. I didn't realize that you were formerly in the sales side.
Yeah.
Went to the other side.
I didn't choose. I went on paternity leave, came out the other side, which is weird. But yeah, that's a topic for a different day. Go ahead. Sorry.
So, I think the key is if a leader of the sales engineering team is onboarding new sales engineers and they think that this idea of a mentor is good, the key thing is to write a position description. It doesn't have to be the classic detailed one for the actual position of SE, but at least a bulleted document of here's why I selected you to be a mentor. Here's what I expect of you as a mentor. When we have our weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings, here's the questions I'll ask you about how your mentee is doing and what the interaction is doing. So the manager, to me, the engineering manager should own new hire onboarding.
Yep.
And they choose that, hey, this mentor idea is pretty good, but they listen to what you're saying. And now you do that. You write the position description, set real clear expectations, and follow up. Like if you have a meeting with your mentor and you ask about how it's going with the mentee, and it's not sounding right, yeah, you got to dive into that. There's no reason you can't pull someone out of the mentor role.
So there's, in addition to what you're saying, I think there should also be a plan and like a document that is shared between the mentor and the mentee of expectation of each of them, right? As a mentee, I expected not just to reach out to my mentor whenever there's a problem. I expected maybe a check-in, a weekly meeting, a bi-weekly, whatever it is, but there was no expectation like that. And my mentor didn't know what to expect of me either. He didn't know if I'm supposed to be messaging them every other minute. So there was no plan. And I think having an agreement, like if the SE manager can sit the mentor and the mentee together and come up with an agreement together of what the expectations are for each of them and sign the contract, I think that would be more like in addition to what you're saying.
I wouldn't even say in addition. I think you're right. I said position description.
Yep.
Better, forget that. Just write an agreement. And then when you set it up, you meet all three of you, go through the agreement. Yep. And to your point, now you're setting expectations. And
well, I would want the position description before, like if I'm becoming a mentor, I would want the position description before I say yes. So I think it would be useful.
Oh. So then we have both.
Yeah. And I've actually had a bad experience being a mentor as well, since I'm sharing bad experiences where I was part of the interview process hiring a new SE. I said no to that SE because I didn't feel that he has the right qualification and the personality traits. They hired him anyways, and they pushed me to become an SE mentor for him because he was in Canada as well, right? And after a few months of not progressing, although I would reach out to his salesperson, he was tied one-to-one to a salesperson. Yeah, he's doing great. He's amazing, whatever. Then the salesperson left, a new salesperson came in. And the SE was not doing well, right?
Mm.
And then me as a mentor got blamed for that SE not doing well, and they kicked me off. They got another mentor for him, and then they let that person like the SE go because the second mentor said he's bad as well. But it was a bad badge, like black badge on my performance review that I didn't mentor the person well. So
So I think we just solved it. In 3 hours, this is solved. The
yeah,
manager of sales engineers takes 1 hour to write a position description, 1 hour to write a mutual agreement,
yeah,
and 1 hour to meet with the mentee and the mentor, set expectations. Done.
done.
We just solved the problem.
Yeah.
What's next on the list?
What's next? Well, actually, I love the gamify part. I'd love for you to
Oh,
elaborate a little bit more because we never well, I rarely seen people gamify stuff in our world. So can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
yeah, absolutely. I would say executive summary, think of ways to make it fun and interesting. And to me, that is friendly competition. Ideally, when you're onboarding people, it's multiple at a time. I think it's hard to gamify if you're just onboarding a couple people. But if you have, let's say, 4 or more, then you can create this friendly competition. And there's so many ways to do that. I would say just Google how to gamify, and you'll probably get more ideas than I could give you.
Well,
But the idea is when they go home and when the new hire goes home and they're having dinner with their spouse and the spouse said, how'd it go? You want them to be enthusiastic and like, oh, today was great. You won't believe what we did this morning. The first thing we did when we got in was my boss had this thing on the whiteboard and we all had to like guess, like, yeah,
yeah.
just make it fun.
That's such an interesting topic. So I wasn't part of that with the onboarding, but I feel like enablement is the continuation of onboarding for me personally. Like
Mhm.
onboarding never ends, basically. And part of that, what we did at my previous job, is we get together every like quarterly QBRs, and the SE team would meet together, and we'd have to do role play. And the whole point of the role play was to trip each other up. We weren't being nice customers. We weren't there to make ourselves each other better. We were there to trip each other up. And it was so much fun, so much better, like being civil or whatever. And all of us got better because of that. But that was one way we gamified it. And I think people can do that with the onboarding process as well. Just create teams and see who does the better demo. See who says there was something that we kind of did. I mean, we couldn't say in a meeting, and if we said or if we interrupted somebody, like if I interrupted our teammate or if we interrupted our customer, like the whole room would just start yelling at us, right? So yeah, I don't know. It was fun for me, and maybe it'll be fun for you if you guys do that. But yeah, so you could gamify it.
Yeah, and the whole like the demo off type of thing,
Yeah,
yeah, and you have scorecards that you're looking for. How many business challenges did they solve? Did they speak to the stakeholder that was there?
yeah.
Did
I
they
mean,
question questions? Like there's just this list of scoring, and then you could
yeah.
have prizes.
I, I feel sorry for my manager because he's the one who was tracking all of this. The only thing everybody else was tracking is interruptions and saying and then it will become a mess. So we kind of were like children. I don't know. I feel like when SEs get together, we just turn into like a fraternity of idiots. I don't know why, just yelling at each other and but it feels like a sport. It feels like a team, like a basketball team or a soccer team or whatever. So
And that is how it should be.
yeah,
If your new hires are sitting in a 2 hour meeting, for example, that's mostly PowerPoint, why are you doing that? That's mean.
but that's how most companies like our enablement right now is 2 hours every other week or something on some technical thing where it's just PowerPoint slides and maybe a short demo. And we can discuss that if you want later, but that's what I see. Most meetings for SEs are like that, right? Instead of engaging and getting people to work together, I'm back in school. sit back,
Yeah.
sit down, shut up, and listen. Don't ask questions till the end because there isn't enough time for everybody to ask questions.
Yeah, so I'll just comment on that. That to me, again, who's ever, I'll call it director of sales engineering, manager, whatever, the manager needs to own new hire onboarding. And if new hires are going through boring sessions day after day, that's up to the manager to fix that.
But to push back, I agree with you 100%. But from what I have seen, is some companies have an onboarding arm of their enablement team, and the managers have nothing to do with it. All SEs and salespeople are sent for a week or two to to headquarters, where the onboarding team is there teaching them things that they will never use.
So in that case, I mean, the manager needs to ask about on sales enablement, who's doing the instructional design, who's the trainer coach, let's see what else. Oh, the copywriter. So to me, sales enablement should have
I don't
those
think I've
three
ever seen a
roles.
copywriter at an enablement program. I agree. I agree that a sales SE leader, if there's that such an onboarding, all right, fine, we have to go. It's part of the corporate process, but we're gonna have our own onboarding later on. Go suffer through those two weeks. Actually, go have fun. Don't listen to a word they're saying because we're gonna come back and do the enablement on our end. Right. That's how I feel about that.
If those three roles, if you think about like what an instructional designer does, they're all day, every day, all they're doing is thinking about how do I get information into somebody's brain like fast and in a way that it'll stick.
Yes, but is it the right information?
Well, that's why you have the copywriter. So the copywriter writes the demo template, what to show and tell based on the stakeholder to whom you're demonstrating. And same thing, copywriters, they write stories for a living. That's all they do every day, all day. Why would we expect like a product marketer to be a copywriter? Well, I shouldn't say that. A lot of times there are copywriters on a product marketing team.
Yep.
And then the other thing is the trainer coach, professional trainers. And again, you know, if they're a trainer, they do need to have the industry experience. You can't have like just a trainer, a generic trainer. They've got to be someone who has been there, done that, or they're not going to be able to have credibility.
All
So,
right.
yeah.
My experience with that, while talking to other SEs and SE managers and directors, is that SE enablement people or trainers are paid less than SE, like much less. In my mind, the best person to train an SE is another SE. Right? Someone who's doing the job, someone who's been doing the job. But
oh, you mean like a mentor?
or maybe an SE who went to become a trainer, but
yeah,
in the that never happens or rarely happens unless the SE is willing to take a pay cut, or they get someone from outside to come in and do the training, and they've never been SEs or never been in sales, and they just come in and like, all right, train. But like, most SEs get paid a lot more than what like that trainer doesn't have the same experience as SEs would have. So why should I trust him or her to give me the training? I just never like I've had these conversations with SE with enablement managers, and they say, "Oh, SEs are too expensive. We have to hire someone cheap." Like, well, who are you hiring? Who would want to take that job?
so yeah, that's a dilemma, but I believe if you have someone who's good at copywriting and then a professional trainer can run with that, that trainer could be a little light on the experience side and still have credibility because the content of what they're delivering is so powerful that the new hires aren't going to question, hey, have you ever done this role? So Yeah, it's tricky.
Maybe not. Maybe I'm strange.
Yeah.
So I wanted to check. Like we touched on a couple of them, but you mentioned you have a document of 100 best practices. Like, if you were to mention, let's say five, we'll start with
Mhm.
three that were the most common best practices. Can you put your finger on that, or is it like they're all common?
Well, pick a category. Um, Preparing for new hire onboarding, sourcing and selecting candidates, new hire onboarding training agenda or topics, and execution of new hire onboarding. And then you pick a category and I'll pick a topic within that I think is notable.
The second one was like choosing the choosing a
Sourcing and selecting candidates.
so that's basically the interview process. And
Yeah.
okay, let's start with that. That makes sense because you need
Okay.
to hire someone before you onboard them, I guess.
So I'm looking at a list of 100 best practices, and under sourcing and selecting, I'm going to go right to one that I think is just, well, actually it's on the top of the list. And it's on the sourcing portion of it, and it combines to selecting. Define your ideal candidate qualifications. What are the key attributes of a top tier candidate? And get clarity. Like, this should be on a position description. The experience, the product knowledge, the industry knowledge, the education, the track record, the behavioral style, the cultural fit. Like, put some work into what's our definition of an ideal candidate. It's not too different from an ideal customer profile.
Yep.
But you're just doing it. If I interview a candidate and I'm like doing the Snoopy dance afterwards because I think they're awesome, what are the attributes that they should have? And so that just takes a little work, a little whiteboarding, a little back and forth with a few leaders. But let's get clear on the target before we go out and try to hit the target.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. That definitely, it's exactly like finding the right customer.
Yeah, it really is. It's no different. The other correlation is another thing on the list here is be prepared to sell top candidates on why they should want to work at your company. Remember, the interview is a two-way street. And top candidates typically have options because every smart manager wants to hire the best.
Yep.
So you have to be ready to tell that candidate, hey, you should come work at our company for these reasons. And maybe it's, hey, we have compelling competitive advantages. We have 5-star customer support. We have a product dev team that consistently releases high value features. Maybe 50% of your pipeline is inbound leads. Let's come up with reasons why. I'm sorry. I'm thinking
No, it's the same thing. Like,
yeah.
But for me, I'm thinking of a friend of mine who was like hassled into interviewing with a company. They kept bugging him, and then he went and met with the leader there. And the first question the leader said is, "Why should we hire you?" And my friend is like, "Well, you asked me to come here. You've been hassling me. Why should I accept a job with you?"
Yeah.
And his response was, "Well, we're this company. We don't need to sell you on our position." So obviously he didn't take the job. Like the meeting ended pretty quickly. But yeah, like for some reason some companies think that they don't have to sell. And it wasn't like a famous company. It wasn't a Cisco or a Slack or a Salesforce. It was an unknown company who, just it doesn't have a good reputation to begin with.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay.
One other thing in this category, as you get to selection of candidates, another best practices that I have here is including a mock presentation role play in the process.
My biggest question for that is now that they've identified the criteria they want, I think they should have a system of identifying those in a person. And I find that harder than actually, like, yeah, I want someone who has all these qualities. But now when I'm interviewing, how do I figure out if they do have these qualities? Has anyone mentioned that or talked about that? If there's a system or anything?
Yeah, I would, something that we've used with clients a lot is that first interview, make it a 15 or 20-minute conversation, just an introductory conversation. And be clear on the opening, we're just having an introductory conversation with a number of candidates, and it gives you a chance to get a sense of who we are and who you are, and we'll go from there. So 15, 20-minute phone screen where you cover some of the most important criteria. Part of it maybe just is, do they have a phone presence? Do they have an executive presence? But start with the phone screen, and then if they pass the phone screen, as soon as possible, that's the other thing. You got to move fast, man, because top performers are never on the street for very long. And for some reason, it seems like in recent years, interview processes have extended, not shortened.
Yeah.
But after the 15, 20-minute phone screen, then schedule a 1-hour interview. And you're just prioritizing in the interview, what do we want to cover? Because if we're going to get to a no, let's get to a no fast. And if we're going to move them forward, let's finish the 1-hour interview, and literally on conclusion of the interview, schedule the next step. Scoop them off the street, because otherwise your competitors are going to.
It's like you're describing a sales call.
I guess I am.
But from what I've seen, we can talk about interviews for hours. They tend to, after each interview, they have to go back to HR or the recruiter and ask them to send an email asking for a few more dates and times to come back with another interview. And that just takes 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. It's just like, take ownership and do it. I don't know why. Maybe it's like a process thing that they have to stick to. But I would rather, for this situation, rather ask for forgiveness than permission.
Yeah, I would agree. And I guess that just has to be addressed at the senior management level. Right? When we're recruiting, we need to be streamlined in order to get the top talent.
I've said this on so many I've been ranting about this actual problem for a long time on this podcast. And my suggestion has been, schedule all your interviews one shot before they even have the first interview, and then cancel if you don't want to move forward, versus having the first call, scheduling the next call, having the second call, scheduling the third call, panel interview. Because especially with sales engineering, it's 6 or 7 or 8 interviews these days. So
that's a great idea, and I'm adding it to the list.
Oof.
By the way, this list, it just keeps growing. So it started by me interviewing 9 been there, done that sales leaders, both on the SE and the AE side, and just asking them. And these are people who have built successful teams. And I just collected everything they said and put them into this document. So I'm going to add what you just said, because I don't have that in there.
So now it's a list of 101. And I contributed 0.8% of it. Nice.
That is a sales engineer comment. I love it.
Okay. So you mentioned there are 3 other categories, which remind me.
New hire onboarding training agenda. What are the topics you're going to cover in the new hire onboarding program?
Okay.
And executing the program. You want to cover a few topics?
Yeah, let's do that.
Software demonstration delivery. And the reason I'm saying that, and this section is probably the longest, the training topics. And they're not for every company, so you can narrow this section down to your company. But clearly, if you're hiring SEs, they're going to be involved in software demonstrations. So that has to be a topic. And I really think that it's broken for many companies. And the reason I say it's broken is they have, here's what happens. Similar to the mentor program, you'll have the top SE get involved in training new SEs. You need some of that, but you need your top SEs to be doing real SE stuff, not training new SEs on the demo.
Yeah.
Or you have product marketing do demo training, and product marketing is awesome. They're going to do great training on
Marketing.
yeah, on marketing. top tier prospect or ideal customer profile, and who we go after, but they're not professional demonstrators.
Nope.
And then you have self-study. Hey, here's a video of Mary. She does the best demos on the team. So watch Mary do demos on a video for 45 minutes or an hour. And that's mean and boring.
Boring, yeah.
The option would be to be very clear. After you watch this, we're going to or just watch the opening for 10 minutes and we'll debrief tomorrow. Just watch this. Or when you watch, there's 10 things I want you to find. It's like a puzzle piece in the demo. Kind of going back to the gamify. So I just think we have to look at how we're teaching new SEs to demonstrate and make it more efficient and effective.
May I interject? Oh, I will interject because it's a podcast. That's the whole point. In my mind, I find what's missing before we even get to how to do a demo is most SEs don't understand the business problem that their product solves. And most SEs are left to figure it out on their own. And what that means, like, if the SE is involved in the discovery call, for the first year, 2, 3 years, all they're asking about is the technical aspects of a solution. When they're talking to their customers, they're asking how many users, what are we interfacing with, all these technical questions, but they can never figure out why are they even talking to them. And there's something like salespeople are supposed to talk about the business. I understand that. But there's something that SEs can do where they can translate technology into business that no one teaches. I've been like, it took me 5 years on my own to figure that out with my current industry. And I'm working with SEs who've been doing this for 15, 20 years and they still haven't figured it out.
I'm surprised, and that bugs me. But we do have on the list here top tier stakeholder definition. So teacher SEs, here's the stakeholders to whom we sell.
Yeah.
And a lot of detail. Like, this is not the ideal customer profile. This is what's their day in the life like without our software first.
Yeah.
What's the business challenge? And then what's their day in the life like with our software?
Good.
And you're spot on. It's where we should really start, is to whom do we sell? What are the challenges do they have that we solve? And then how do we solve it? And now we can move into some of the technical piece, but don't do that until you understand.
And even what are the best questions to ask to highlight those problems to the customers? Because sometimes customers think that they're doing like that's their life. They don't think it's a problem, right? They just that's the way it is. And if SEs cannot ask the right question to like what's that movie? Not Interstellar. Leonardo DiCaprio. It's when they plant ideas in someone's head.
Yeah, I know the movie. As soon as I hear the name, I'll be like, "That's it."
Yeah, now I'm gonna have to look it up. Leonardo DiCaprio and Christopher Nolan. Inception.
Inception. That's it.
Inception. So, like, we need to plant that idea in that person's mind. So by the time we get to do the demo, it's like they thought about it. and
Yeah.
if they can relate to what we're saying in the demo. Because if we don't do that and we just talk about it in the demo, okay, now we're planting the idea in the demo, at which point it's too late. They said no already. We're done. That's my thought process, at least, about that.
I completely agree. In fact, I'll update the stakeholder definition to be clear. For each stakeholder, a question list that you should ask in discovery by stakeholder. And to your point, a lot of times they're going along thinking life is fine. So you have to ask questions that help them go, wait, what?
Yeah.
Life isn't fine?
Or
Oh,
life could be better. Maybe life is
or
fine.
life could be better. Yeah.
Life could be better.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'll give you an example. With my current role, automation is something that's very important. People want to automate, right? But the speed of automation is even more important. And that's how I was able to break into accounts, because I was the only one asking about, like, how fast is your automation? How fast can you run whatever it is that you need to run? And the faster you run, the more tests you can run, the faster you can release stuff to your customers. No one's ever asked that, and that's how I broke into the account.
That's brilliant too. Oh, it's brilliant, but it's basic, right? Like
It's
we
so,
should.
because everything else is one to one. Everything else is a Toyota or a Honda, right? In most cases.
Mhm.
But sometimes you just like, hey, the Toyota never goes to the shop, which means you can drive it all the time. You're not gonna waste time with it being breaking down. Honda is maybe a little bit less, and I don't know. I have a Honda, so I'm not saying anything negative about Honda. But that's the point. Like sometimes it's just so close that you need to find these little things, and that also is not on the onboarding.
It looks like this list is will grow by like
We should have
5
a
by the time
conversation.
we're done here. You're clarifying a lot of things here too. Um, where should we go from here?
So okay, we talked about is what do you think about like teaching the proof of concept in like the process of the proof of concept? Is that even part of the onboarding, or is that too advanced for people to be onboarded with?
Um, I guess that's an it depends. I generally haven't thought of that as a new hire onboarding topic, but if you do proof of concepts, and I know you've talked about this in the podcast a lot. Um, what did you say recently? It's the death of the deal or
Let's
something.
go to die.
If you if you don't, you got to manage it.
Black
So
hole. Yeah.
I have met clients who have a proof of concept to win ratio of like 80%. They're nailing it. They are managing it. They are setting expectations. They're not doing proof of concepts with the wrong people. Um, and that's awesome. 80% win rate on a proof of concept. And I've seen the 10 and 20 percenters, and the
I
difference is obvious when you look at it. They're just not managing them.
I've seen people who don't even track.
What?
Yeah.
Uh,
I think someone's that's something, I don't know if that's part of onboarding or enablement or management or whatever. But a lot of companies don't track anything for SEs. SE sales engineering is an afterthought. They just track what's there on Salesforce for salespeople, what's closed and what's not. And there's a saying, what gets tracked gets improved, or something like that.
what you can't something what's
You
not
can't improve
measured.
what you're not tracking, or something. I'm butchering it, but basically, track people.
Yeah. To that end, I'll ask you what for sales engineers, let's say they graduate from new hire onboarding. And by the way, there are people that shouldn't graduate. And you know what? That's okay. Like we do our best to hire the best, and we try and we're very good at it. But sometimes you mishire, like it just
Yeah.
happens. So let's have the ability to fail people out of new hire onboarding.
Okay.
And then I just lost my train of thought, and where I was going to go with that.
Well, let me ask you a question. Maybe they'll jog back your memory.
Oh, it had to do with the performance indicators.
Okay, go ahead.
So they graduate from new hire onboarding. What should the performance indicators be for, say, that first 3 to 6 months post onboarding? And should they be different from, say, months, 7 and on? Like
Well,
it seems like there's this transition period from graduating from new hire onboarding to that ramp up to something. Is there something we should measure in there?
my question before we even get there is how long is the onboarding, generally speaking? Because that could affect, well, I guess will track the same stuff, but what the results could vary.
I guess that's true. And I guess you'd take this list of onboarding topics, select the ones that are right for you, and then have your quote instructional designer determine how many hours it's going to take to transfer the knowledge into the head of the new hire and add up all those hours. And now you have your answer.
Okay. I mean, the KPIs are very dependent on what is taught during the onboarding, right? The KPI I would want is, like, if we're gonna do, like, how many discovery calls led to demos, how many led to being disqualified right there on the spot, and then how many demos led to a POC or to a deal close.
That makes sense. All of them.
Yeah. I honestly want to track how many no's the SE says to salespeople, but that's a personal thing.
What?
How many no's? N-O, like no, right? And it's salespeople.
Sorry,
I
I
don't know
just
if
realized.
What was that?
I just realized my phone wasn't off, so it keeps ringing or dinging, and that's rude. So.
I haven't heard a thing, and if you hadn't said anything, I'll edit
Oh,
that.
oh, good. All right. So, sorry about that.
No, it's all good. Yeah, KPI. Well, there's a lot of KPIs, right? Like how long between a demo request to a demo performance. Right. That's also an interesting topic.
That is, yeah. Well, velocity is a key performance indicator.
Depending on like how many products the SE has to sell, how complex it is, I want to track how many hours that SE spent learning, and because learning is always an afterthought for some reason. What else is there? I mean, there's a lot.
I'll mention one other thing on this. There's key performance indicators and performance indicators.
Yeah.
And I think once you just list all the performance indicators, because to your point, there's a lot of them. Now let's step back and let's say, what are the key performance indicators, which should be no more than 3.
Yeah.
And track them all. But you're paying attention that we call them key because they are.
Well,
so
have you read the book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution?
I have not. I have heard of it, but I have not.
Well, so a brief summary is that they talk about something called lead measures and lag measures, and WIG, widely important goal. The widely important goal is, like one goal that you want to achieve, 1 or 2 max. And for example, my wildly important goal for this quarter is to increase my YouTube subscribers from 3,840 to 5,000 by September 30th. Right? So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Shameless plug. So
that's fine. I think that's awesome, though. Yeah.
So, okay, that's my goal. Now the question is, what do I have to do to move that needle? Right, and that's the lead measure. The lead leads to a lag, right? So for me right now, what I'm choosing to do, what I think is the right thing, it's creating more YouTube videos and creating shorts from the YouTube videos I'm doing. So that will move the needle forward. Now, when it comes to sales engineering, what is the goal that the SE has or the organization has? And that should translate to what the goal of individual SEs, and then what is the immediate action, the one action or 2 that they need to track to push that needle forward. And that will be the KPIs that I would track.
I love that. It makes so much sense. Let's tie the KPIs to the strategic initiatives of the corporation, which also means that KPIs might vary in a quarter or something. Like
Yeah.
maybe the first half of the year, the KPIs are one thing, and we get to June and we actually change them a little bit.
That's actually a discussion I had with someone who's trying to build their commission structure, whether it's management by objective or commission. And it all like the KPIs or whatever you're going to reward the SEs on is very dependent on the behavior you're trying to incentivize.
Mm-hmm.
Because my boss came to me like when I first started. He said, Ramsey, I need you to do 12 demos a year or a month, or I can't remember what the. It's like, all right, fine. I reached out to a bunch of people. Hey, do you want to do it? Do you want to see a demo? And I did 12 demos very quickly. Did it lead to a sale? No.
No.
So was that the right KPI? And also when you say like, all right, okay, fine, let's track demo to close. Well, as an SE, I'm not in control of how many I can demo, and I'm not in control of how many I can close. But I may be in control of how many I say no to,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how many, like maybe then I can figure out the KPI that's no to demo ratio. You said no to 5 and you demoed 5. All right, great. Let's talk about all right, demo to POC or demo to close ratio now. All right, out of these 5, how many did you close? Did you close 5? Well, that's amazing. Maybe you should say no a little bit less because maybe there's more opportunity that you're being picky on.
Yeah.
But I think the KPIs, and that's something that I'm seeing from some companies, they choose the KPIs and they stick with it forever. But the KPIs have to be constantly like revised. Is it the right one? For me, I don't care what KPI you pick, as long as you're able to revise it after 3 months, after a sprint or whatever, and then choose something else or improve it or perform and say like, this is good, let's tweak it, or this was horrible, just forget about it and pick something new.
Mm-hmm. It really makes sense to me because as a company grows, their strategic initiatives grow, and as they change, well, what's the behavior you need your employees to perform, and then how do we incentivize people to perform the right behavior, and how do we track it? So,
and how do you incentivize the sales SEs and sales to be on the same page?
We need to schedule a different hour to talk about that, the relationship between the SE and the AE.
Well, it's less about the relationship, it's more about the goals, because sometimes it seems like we have conflicting goals.
Mm-hmm. So, yes, I think the relationship and the goals, they're interconnected. Like I put my hands together like this.
Yeah.
But
the reason I was more specific is sometimes SEs and salespeople have great relationships, but their goals are conflicting, and since they have a good relationship, they can talk about it, but their goals are still conflicting. Right.
That's interesting. And it's wrong.
Oh yeah. Well,
isn't it fun when you see an SE-AE team that just jives? Like it's really cool. It's like they can read each other's mind. They know how to get each other's back covered, and in a demo, the interaction is just stellar.
Yeah. I've been in demos where my salesperson sits in the corner in the back or even in the front and just opens their laptop and starts doing emails.
No.
And I asked them like, hey, instead of doing that, can you actually take notes so that I don't lose the flow of my demo? If someone asks a question, I want to keep going with the flow, right? But no, I have to stop and take notes. And my thing just crashed and my salesperson is busy sending emails instead of entertaining while I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah, no, it's like that's a totally different topic. You're right, and we can talk about. We need like 5 hours. I need a therapy session. We need a couch. And you still have a little bit more time.
Yes, I can go a little bit longer. Yes.
All right. I wanted, because there were 2 more parts of it that we didn't touch. But if people want to download it, they just email you.
Oh yeah, if people want the list of 100+ best practices, you know what? The best thing is message me on LinkedIn
Okay.
with your email address,
Okay.
and then I'll email the PDF.
All right. So Brian Geary, I'll leave a link to your LinkedIn in the show notes as well, but people should know you by now.
Yep.
Brian Geary. And okay, let's keep going. We're not done yet. There's 2 more sections. Why did you split them into those sections, by the way?
It just seems logical. As I was collecting them, I had this big long document, and it was too big and long. So I started to think about how can I categorize these. So that's how I came up with strategy, preparing for onboarding, sourcing and selecting candidates, new hire onboarding, training agenda, topics, and executing new hire onboarding.
So there's 5 sections.
Yeah, the strategy is short. The strategy, the basic gist of the strategy session is double down on onboarding. Like, it's critical, get it right, make it unparalleled, commit to a plan, invest the time, money, and resources, and you'll get a return. Don't, and it will cost you. So just before you get started, just have a strategy conversation with whomever you need to at the C-level, and make sure you're all on the same page. The other piece is replicating best practices. As we're talking about here, there's a right way to onboard.
Yep.
And there's obviously wrong ways. So, and it like they're known. So replicate best practices. And then another piece is the outsourcing. Like, if you don't have the resources to onboard, you can outsource it.
I think most companies should outsource it.
They probably should, because you think about it, it's a specialized skill. That's why I say, like, you want instructional designers, you want trainers, and you want copywriters. Like, so you may not have that on your team. So find a company, maybe like SalesMD, and say, hey, can you just do our onboarding for us?
Here's like, I'm not trying to sell your services. I am, but my point is, this is something you do day in and day out. Like, let's take any company. Let's take VMware. Their core product is like VMware Workstation, VMware, everything that VMware sells. It's not sales engineering, right? But your job, your sole purpose, is to create better sales engineers. Your end product is sales engineers. So why would they, I mean, they sell, like, they do that all the time, where they're competing against in-house tools with their customers, and their response is, well, this is what we do. Why are you wasting your time building in-house tools when we can do it for you and provide you support and all that? And yet they do in-house tools when it comes to sales engineers and sales engineering and their training and all that. And that's why a lot of sales engineers are just messed up. I don't know about VMware. I heard it's a great company and they have a lot of great SEs. I'm just giving an example.
Yeah. No, it is true. I mean, there's specialty firms. Mine is one of them. That we get that box checked.
Yep.
So you don't have to.
Yep.
We involved all the right subject matter experts and all the right people at the right time. But yeah, and then back to the very beginning, the thing that's broken with new hire onboarding is the length of time it takes to revenue, and then the length of time to full productivity. It's all too long. And then on top of that, the attrition.
Yep.
It's too high.
Yep.
And if you get your new hire onboarding right, you're going to fix those 2 problems. And if you can't put a business case behind that, then don't do it. But if you put a pen to paper, the business case is going to stare you in the face.
Oh, you mean the business case of having good salespeople instead of bad ones?
Yeah.
What could possibly be a good reason for that? Okay. So, all right, we covered strategy briefly, which is freaking do it and do it well. All right. Next, there's 2 more sections.
Yeah. So we covered sourcing and selecting, new hire onboarding training topics. And now I've lost track. Did we cover execution at all?
No.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, now you're ready to go. You've got new hires on board. We kind of covered it in the gamify. But there's a lot of topics within executing the plan. Peer-to-peer learning is one, we talked about. Well, we talked about a mentorship. Let's talk about peer-to-peer learning. That's a little different. That's selecting the right subject matter experts and involving them at the right time. But I'm sorry. There's two things I'm thinking about here in your new hire onboarding execution. Peer-to-peer is when a fellow new hire is going through onboarding. So let's say you hire 10 people and they all have the right experience, but maybe one of them has like a deep dive experience in a certain topic. Even though they're a new hire, they can train the other new hires because they have that deep dive experience. And that breaks up the new hire training. People like to hear from their peers. It builds camaraderie. So I think on the execution, in addition to the mentorship thing that we're thinking about, which is different, think about, is there an opportunity for peer-to-peer learning to cross-pollinate some of the skills that this team of new hires brings to the table?
I mean, the way I see it is, sometimes you get a new hire that's coming from a customer, and they have a different set of views than someone who's been in SE in the past just for a different company.
That's a perfect example. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's why I wanted to share that. Basically, it's my way of saying I agree with you, Brian. It's hard not to.
Here's another best practice that jumps out at me from this document is weekly knowledge checkpoints. We want to validate that what has been taught has been learned. So every Friday or Monday, once a week, let's make sure we have some type of knowledge checkpoint. And they should come in different formats. They could be as simple as the manager in charge of new hire onboarding sitting with new hires and asking a series of pre-planned questions. They could be a literal test. They could be a mock demo. Whatever it is, though, let's have the knowledge checkpoints. And here's the important part. If they don't pass, like if you realize, actually, we didn't get all the right knowledge into this new hire's brain, let's put the brakes on and regroup on that topic, and then do another knowledge checkpoint. The second time, they should pass. Your call if you want to continue after that. To me, it kind of leads to another important part of new hire onboarding execution. I mentioned a little earlier, you have to make tough choices. There will be times when you realize in the process of onboarding that there's not a match. You're so much better off for both of you making the choice to separate after a month of new hire onboarding than letting them get out in the field and 6 months later making the same decision, right?
I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, from a business sense, it makes sense to me. Yeah, I mean, from a business sense, it makes sense. But yeah,
I mean, there's the human element of, maybe if a new hire just isn't getting the topic, maybe that's a signal to you that you actually do need a subject matter expert that all team members can access.
Yeah. I guess it depends on how the person gets hired. If there's the expectation that you don't do well during this onboarding, you will be like, go. Right. I guess for me, that's how I'm facing. Like, it's more. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the actual onboarding process. Everything you're saying makes sense logically. From a human perspective, I feel like if I were to be a manager and do that, I would have to let someone know that you're going to have the onboarding period. And after that, if you don't do well, there's a chance of you not having a job. No.
Yeah, I'm there with you. There's a let's manage expectations.
Yeah. But
it's mutual too. By the way, one of the topics back on the topics is, let me scroll up. How do we word it? Week in life, a week in life. So make sure early in the onboarding, really, if you can, as soon as week one, let new hires know what they're getting into. So maybe week one is a very thoughtful job shadowing of select people. And it's all about, we're going to let you know everything we can about like the day in the life. Once you graduate from new hire onboarding, this is what it's going to be like for you.
Yeah.
And somehow cover that in week one, so that at the end of week one, you can both say, yeah, I'm on board, this makes sense. Or a lot of times the new hire themselves might be like, I took the wrong job.
Yeah. But now they have the time to look for another one.
Yeah.
Versus us saying, you know what? You've tried, not hard enough. See ya. Right. And now they're out of a job and they're not getting any severance pay because, they've been on the job for 2 weeks or whatever. But like, I get that. And from a business side, I do understand it. Here's the thing, though.
You can get creative. I love it. Like you're good at thinking from the heart as well as the brain.
Yeah.
And that's what I hear you doing. So, you could also just have a policy. People will get paid in full for 3 months of new hire onboarding.
Yeah.
Whether they make it or not.
Yeah.
So if we let them go after 2 weeks, they're still getting full 3 months pay.
And they learn something.
Idea. How much does that really cost? Since failing somebody out of new hire onboarding is rare.
Yeah.
The occasion that it happens
costs less than keeping them full time for a year.
Yeah, it really will. And then it's a goodwill thing, and the new hire is let down softly, and the new hire has some cash for a little bit.
Yeah.
So there's ways to address it.
Well, that's a better upbeat way of ending the show, I think.
Good. I like it. We both feel good.
Yeah. I'm glad we came to this conclusion together. See, that's the thing about having discussions, right? Like, and being honest about the discussions versus just saying yeah or whatever. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the back and forth. I appreciate this, Brian. And this was a great episode, at least for me, because I've been thinking about onboarding and how much it sucks for a lot of companies. So I'm glad that you're thinking about that as well.
Yeah, no, this is great for me. And like I said, I've been taking notes, and I'll have this document updated by tomorrow. So
awesome.
To be continued. Yeah. Ramsey, thank you so much.
It's
always a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for being here, for investing your time with me. I hope it was worth your time. If it was, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And if you feel inclined to leave a review on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, wherever you leave reviews, that would be much appreciated. And what did you think? What are some of the best practices that you feel are missing or that are being done very well? I would love to hear your thoughts, because there's one size fits all. Their onboarding it would differ depending on the products, depending on the quantity of products that people will have to sell. So I just want to hear your thoughts and learn from you, hopefully as much as I provided value in this episode. So that's it for me for today. Thank you for being here again. With that, I'm signing off.